And get on. I just talked to her, but it is
Welcome,
recorded.
welcome, welcome to our conversation. Thank you all so much for joining us again as Midlands Mediation Center comes back to talk about why I vote. And today I am super excited because I have Robyn and her friends who are joining us and sharing with us why I vote. And so remember, this is just an initiative to give people insight into that there are many reasons why people vote, why voting is important, and then how do we help other people to realize the importance of voting and get others out to the polls to vote. So let me welcome Robyn, and what I'm gonna do is just have Robyn, if you can introduce yourself and your friends, I would just love it. So thank you. Robyn, go ahead.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm Robynne Campbell, a member of a lot of different things. I'm glad to be here. I am a registered voter and I have voted. We also have Mr. Charlie Payne here. You want to give him a wave? There you go. Yay. And
Yay.
he'll give you his story in a little bit. We have Miss Letitia Blanchard. Give a wave.
Hi,
Hey, and
Natasha.
as well, she'll give your story in a little bit. And I have my niece, my very special niece here, um, a young voter. Her name is Alana Abney. So looking forward to good conversation. Let's get started.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for joining us. So the first question that we want to ask is, why do I vote? In other words, why do you vote? So Robyn, if you would start and tell us why you vote.
Definitely. I vote as a way to express my voice. I am one to believe that my vote does count. I believe that I can influence the legislation that we have in play by exercising my right to vote. So that is why I vote. That is why I will continue to vote and continue to take part in my society.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Robyn. Mr. Payne, why do you vote?
Why do I vote? Well, I vote because it's so important for us to uh, cast a vote for the community, our state level officials. That's how they get in positions. And we want to vote for the one that's not just qualified, but also the one that's going to support our needs. And that's so important. And then go to the president level, the senators, the congressmen. Those are the ones that set the laws for our country. And so if I don't vote, then I have no reason to complain about how things go along in this world. So I think when I vote, it makes a difference. And for a long time, I didn't know anything about voting when I was coming up as a kid, but that's the second question I'm seeing. But yeah, I mean, I vote because I realize now that it's so important for everybody to get out and vote. I mean, of course, you got to be registered first to do that. So that's just as important as voting.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Payne. Alana, can you share with us why you vote?
One of the main reasons that I vote is mainly because I feel like with me being so young and not actually having like a real thing involved in politics, it's like one of the main things that help me feel like I can not control, but like control what's going on in the government.
Awesome. Thank you, Alana. And Letitia, how about you? We lost your video and you're on mute.
Well, I vote because I want to see a change
Awesome.
in our community. Um, I also was taught from little that I had to vote because it counts.
Yes. 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 Thank you. Thank you.
You're
Anything else?
welcome.
Anything else?
No bell.
Awesome, awesome. And so thank y'all so much. And so yeah, so it's important to vote. It sounds like what this crew agrees with, and I agree 100%. And it is our voice. Our vote equals our voice. And one of the things I talk about all the time is that we live in what we call a democracy, and a democracy said it's the voice of all, not just a selective few. And when we don't all exercise our right to vote, we're no longer democracy. We become an oligarch where the people in power and their selective friends are making decisions about what happens in our life. And so we don't want that. We want to be a democracy, and a strong democracy means that everybody that has that right is exercising that right to vote. And so the second question is, growing up, in your community or in your family, what were you taught about voting? So I'm gonna start with you, Mr. Payne, because you started it out in the last conversation.
Okay. Well, growing up, I'm from the country. I'm from Georgia, and being a little boy, we played outside and all this stuff, and I don't think I ever seen my parents vote. I'm not saying they didn't vote, but I never seen it, never knew anything about it. And when I learned about voting, is when I came into the military. And so in the military, that's why I started voting. That's why the absentee ballots, that's how we had to vote away from home. And so that's why I started that. And that's why I learned the most about voting. Not quite understanding the reason for voting, but because of the unit I was part of, they made sure everybody voted. So then I just got into it from there and kept moving on. And so that's how I started voting. That's how I learned about voting. And of course now it's a whole lot different. I understand much more.
Good. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Alana, what about you? What were you taught about voting?
I've always been taught from like a really young age that I should go vote. I used to actually go to the polls with my mom when I was younger, and then I never really understood it until I took AP Government my senior year. And ever since then, I've been like really into politics and the news and everything that goes on.
Awesome. Thank you, Alana. And Letitia?
My grandmother always told me to vote. She was like, we didn't have that we didn't have that growing up. But you have that now, so you need to go and vote. So I just do it ever since.
Also, so grandma instilled in you that need to go out and vote. And I know how grandmothers are when they instill those kinds of things into us. So that's awesome. How about you, Robin? Robin, you're muted. Can you hear us?
All right. Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Awesome. At a young age, I can agree with Charlie. It wasn't until I was maybe, well, I wasn't out the house, but I was in my like tween ages that I actually, seen the voting process. But at a young age, it wasn't talked about. It wasn't something that, please, the adults watched the news and the kids were in a whole nother place. So as I grew up, it was definitely talked about, and it was like, look, people have sacrificed so much. If you don't get your butt up and vote, you are, allowing them to die in vain, allowing them to be beat in vain. And then my grandma, you're a woman. So not only are you a black woman where the black person didn't have the right to vote, but the woman didn't have the right to vote either. So it was expressed that you do the given right, or you have the given right. So make sure that you use it. And I'm thankful when I use it.
Thank you for sharing, Robin. Libby
Mhm.
has also joined us here in the conversation. So, Libby, I'll let you know that we are live so that you'll know. But, Mr. Payne, what about you, sir?
The second question, or are we on the third question?
We're on the third question, which I forgot to say. Our third question is thinking about this thing of voting. How do we encourage others to vote? I mean, what can we say as individuals in our community to help other people understand how important their votes are and how it's part of what we are as a democracy?
Yeah. Now that I understand the reason for voting, why we should vote, how important it is to vote, I encourage my kids and my grandkids to vote, and they all do. And I had to keep saying it over and over and over, and they do it. Now my granddaughter just registered for the first time, turned the age, well, she did at 17. So now she just turned 18 this month, yesterday, matter of fact. And so she voted for the first time. Yeah. And so I as I go around and about each and every day, I kind of talk to people about voting, see where they are. And they tell me, well, I know I don't vote. I ask them why. And they're like, well, it's not going to count. I don't mean anything. I said, no, you're all wrong. I said, every vote count, and you really makes a difference when you cast your vote. Because when you don't cast your vote, then you're going to get the person that you don't want in the office, and then they make these rules and policies that you don't agree with, and you never know, that one vote just might make the difference.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I kind of go around and talk this stuff all the time, and Because I just talked to another young lady just the other day, and she didn't register to vote. And I said, why not? Well, I don't know anything about it. So just like me, when I was young, I didn't know anything about it either. So now I'm getting her squared away for next year.
Yeah.
You know, so that's kind of how I go about getting people motivated to get into voting and stuff.
Yeah, that's great job too to encourage other people. Letitia, how about you? How can we get motivate other people to go vote?
Well, with me, with the came down to my kids didn't want to vote, and like I explained to them, I was like, it's very important that y'all vote. So I made all of them go to the poll with like all of them go and get registered, so they're all registered now, and they're gonna vote. I feel that young kids is the worst person, the people that does not want to go vote, and you need to establish a conversation with your kids about voting and
Yeah.
how.
Yeah, and how, I mean, I think that is important. I think we don't spend time. You know, we spend time talking to our kids about a lot of other things, but I think we miss the opportunity to talk to them about the importance of voting. We had two people earlier today. They were saying they used to be taught in school, you know, in civics class, why voting was important and how it relates to how we function as a country. And some reason we've fallen away from making sure our young people understand that early on. So yeah, I agree. Getting our children not only registered to vote, because that's the one step, but the second step is getting them actually to the poll. Alana, what do you think about it?
I think one of the main ways that you can motivate people to vote is to like relate politics to their lives because some people don't understand that it involves them. Because I mean, a lot of my friends don't think that it really involves them because they're not really doing much. But at the same time, everything that goes on in the world is always involves what they something that they have going on in their lives.
Thank you, Alana. That was, yeah, to let them know how important it is to their life. Robin, how about you? Robin had a long lag in responding.
I've been on each one take one,
Robin, turn
and
off your
trying to
camera. Your audio
offer
is messed up. All right,
Oh,
try again, Robin.
I'm sorry.
There
I'm
you go.
sorry. I didn't want to praise the Lord. No, offering rides, getting people registered to vote. One thing Charlie didn't say is he carried voter registrations with him as well, and he took them to the gas stations and he registered people to vote. And then I know he's on their butts and is going to take them down there to vote. So um, I'm just calling on motivated people to help me out and get some people down to the polls, and including food programs. We talked about feeding people and having chairs and stuff available, just motivating people to get their butt out the house and go vote.
Just to go and go vote. Yeah. Libby, what do you think about how do we get people to get out and vote?
Um, just kind of by telling your experiences with voting yourself. And, I know I agree with some of the things that other people have said, and people think that your vote doesn't count. But in the long run, it does because, every vote does count. So just explaining to people the importance of voting and what their vote could do, when it comes to anything, because it could come down to that one vote.
That makes a difference in our community. Yeah. And so, um, one of the things that I've discovered in this journey that I've had here at Midlands, because Midlands Mediation Center, we're a community mediation center, and our role is to make sure that our community is functioning as best as it can and has access to information. So we work really hard to have conversations like these so we can find out some of the issues that are going on in our community. And one issue we discovered is this election issue. It's like people don't have right information. They don't have enough information, and nobody seems to have collected that information and provided it so people can have access to information. So our role in the community is to bring access to that information and to create creative partnerships where we can do that. So I'm excited of the things that we're doing, and Robynne is a part of it. And one of the things is we finished a video about voting. We did we noticed that there was no video about absentee voting, and so we invested in creating that video, and it'll be launched tomorrow. Across Richland County, so people know how to fill out the absentee ballot, put it in the envelope, get the signatures, put that in the envelope, and mail it out or take it to the polls, and the poll will know what to do when they get it. So we're really doing different kinds of things so that our community can really exercise this thing called the right to vote. And like Robynne said, so many people march for folks to have the right to vote. A lot of people die for people to have the right to vote. And it isn't just, you had in the beginning, only white men were voting, then black men were allowed to vote, then white women were allowed to vote, and then we had indigenous people were allowed to vote. Then 65 came and everybody was allowed to vote, but the voting age was at 21. And so young people that could go to war still didn't have the right to vote. So somebody fought so that they can get the right to vote at 18. They had the theme, young enough to die, young enough to vote. So it changed things. And then it wasn't until 1970 when people with disabilities had access to vote. So they had the right to vote, but there were no machines that would allow them to vote. There were no systems put in place for them to vote. And so we're still fighting this whole thing of our democracy. Our democracy means everybody gets to vote. And so until we remove all these barriers associated with voting, we're not having full democracy. So thank you all for joining in this conversation. You all were wonderful. Anybody have any last thing they want to share with our audience? That would be great.
Well, one thing that I would say, as we can see right now, as the voting is taking place, there's so much suppression is still taking place. They're putting all kind of barriers in place to stop Black votes in particular.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did an absentee ballot, and I tell you, when you do that, you got to make sure that you sign everyone, complete the address, get the witness, and fill out that. If you're gonna have somebody else to turn it in for you, make sure the form completely filled out.
Yeah.
I dropped mine off yesterday at the main office, and they're collected outside, and I seen so many people turned away because they didn't have the documents completed.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very important to have all the documents completed the way it should be in order to get it turned in.
Yeah, and that's sad because they worked hard to get to that point and then discovered it ain't right, but nobody told them what wasn't right about it. So yes, Mr. Payne. And so we got to keep informing people as much as we can to get the information out. I think we'll start seeing more information come out. I'm hoping for it, but if we don't, I'm making sure that we be intentional to get that information out. So thank you, Mr. Payne, for sharing that story, because we really need to hear that.
And one last thing on the ballot itself, they got the bubbles. You gotta make sure you do the bubbles. Don't put no X or no check and none of that stuff, because it's not gonna count.
Right. So we got to fill in the bubbles.
Yeah.
That's good information. So once again, on behalf of Midlands Mediation Center, thank you, Robynne, for inviting your friends. Thank you, Robynne friends, for joining on this here voter mobilization conversation so that we can get people out and voting. So we really appreciate you. We really appreciate the conversation, and I hope you all have a fantastic day. And to those of you who have joined us, thank you for listening. Remember, at Midlands Mediation Center, there's only 3 things that we're asking you to do, and that is to vote,